You know, I am always working with people who are in this growth journey. They come to me at a point when they're burnt out. They know they need to make some changes, but they don't know where to start. So I'm constantly meeting with people either at the beginning or the middle of their healing journey. And what I often see is people who are dedicated, are committed to the path and doing everything they need to do. But they get to this point that's like this awkward transition point. And so, they've been changing their habits. They're getting to bed earlier. They're eating healthier. They're being mindful of how they're talking to themselves and their internal dialogue. They're regulating their nervous system. They're doing all these incredible tools that are helping them manage their stress better. And they get that under control. And then they kind of get to this awkward point where they're like, okay, but why do I feel stuck still? Like, why do I feel like I've done all this internal change, but a lot of my external world hasn't quite shifted to match it yet? Like why don't I naturally feel better instantly? Right. And some people do hit this, right? But the very real part of it is there's this transition phase between you letting go of this old version of you and you becoming this new version of you. And that transition between the two can look scary and can be uncomfortable. And oftentimes has you actually questioning if the work you've done has actually worked. Okay. And as someone who's been on a self healing, self growth journey, like consistently for over like 10 years now, I can tell you that for many years, was stuck in a constant process of feeling like I was never doing enough. And like, I was like, there was always more to heal. There's always more to heal. And that's like a vicious cycle to get into because it's great to be accountable and it's great to take your growth and healing into your own hands. That's how you take your power back. That's how you co-create with the universe on like what you want to make of this life of yours. But there's also this like kind of toxic cycle you can get in where you always think something's wrong with you. And that also isn't healthy. Okay. So if you are someone who's been doing all the work and inside you feel like, hey, I've done a lot, I've shifted, but outside you're like, what is going on? I'm telling you that it's just a sign that you're at this breaking point. Okay. And this transition period is going to be a little messy and it's going to be a little ugly. And the reason that is because now you have to face the fact that the way your life once was is no longer going to exist. And so that can come in the form of losing friends, switching careers, moving locations, changing relationships. Like it can be all forms of things, right? But this new version isn't necessarily going to fit into the mold of all those things anymore because you're not the same person. Right. And the mistake that most people make, I shouldn't say the mistake, but the route most people take that honestly doesn't usually work is before they do the work on themselves, before they get to the root cause of why the way I'm living doesn't work for me anymore, they jump to the end of switching things. I'm just going to move. I'm just going to get out of this relationship. I'm going to switch jobs. I'm going to cut this person off. And so they go to that method first thinking that's going to be the answer to their problems. But then what happens is because they haven't done the inner work first of figuring out why is this out of alignment anymore? What behaviors and patterns around said relationship or said job are actually causing me to burn out, or actually stressing me out, or making me not enjoy life anymore? Like what of my behaviors and energies that are coming out in these situations, what is it of that that's causing me to not experience joy anymore in my life? Like that's causing me to feel exhausted and overwhelmed and just anxious all the time. Most people will jump to the quick fix first before asking themselves that tough question. Okay? But if you're the person who's been asking yourself these tough questions, who's been doing the work of self-discovery and growth, and now you're at this point where you're like, Kate, like I feel the internal shift, but why hasn't my external, like, why is my job and friends and all these things still not fulfilling me? Well, it's probably because now you actually have to do it. Now you actually have to let go. Now you actually have to decide that I no longer want to be doing those things, right? And it can always go two ways. One way is the universe goes, I'm just going to remove this from your life, right? So it's either you either get fired or the person breaks up with you, or maybe your friend moves to another country so you don't have to do that awkward, like, hey, I don't, like, phase out the relationship type thing. So that's one way of handling it, is the universe steps in and forces your hand. The other way is you have to do it yourself. You have to end the relationship. You have to fire your clients. You have to quit the job, right? And in most cases, that is the empowering position, is when you do it yourself, because you're in control, right? Like you're choosing the next step. But also, very real part of it is when you've gotten to this point and internally it's not aligning anymore, but you actually have to go now, like, say goodbye to these things. That's scary sometimes. And not only is it scary because you're letting go of these things again that have been a part of your life for so long, but it's scary because you're taking power and control in a way that you maybe haven't in the past. Because now you're making this decision from a more aligned place, right? Versus making decisions on making everybody else happy, or what's going to look good on paper, or what's going to get you further in your career, right? Not that that's a bad thing, but like, now you're making a decision from, like, this is just not what I want anymore. This doesn't agree with my heart and my soul. Like, this doesn't bring me joy. This doesn't light me up. Like, making a decision from putting you first is very hard for people. It's very hard. It's a skill set. And so when you've been doing all this work and you get to this point and now you have to finally let go of these things, sometimes that's the big boss. Sometimes that's your Bowser. Okay. Sometimes that's when the universe goes, this is your final test. You've done all this work. You know that this doesn't work for you anymore. You know this is out of alignment. So show me. Show me what you're going to say no to. Show me what you're willing to say bye to. Show me what you're willing to let go of, so that we can make space in your life for the things that actually bring you joy, for the things that actually bring you fulfillment and love and abundance. And I am a firm believer that the universe, God, whatever you believe in, wants us to be more abundant and experience more love. Like, there's no question in my mind that it wants that for all of us. And the delta between whether we get to experience more love and abundance is how fast we get out of our own way, right? Like, the universe could bring you the most perfect everything to your doorstep. And if you're not ready to receive that, if you're still questioning what's right for you, what you want, what's going to make you happy, well, then the most perfect package should come to your doorstep and you wouldn't even be able to recognize it because you haven't done the work on yourself yet. Okay. So again, I'm speaking to the people who have been doing the work, the people who have been holding themselves accountable, right? I heard a quote a few years ago that I live by, and I don't even remember the first time I heard it, but it's, some seasons you're living the questions and some seasons you're living the answer. And we need both in our lives. It's a constant cycle between the two. Asking a lot of questions, you do all the work, eventually you'll start living the answer and things will feel a bit lighter. And then you're going to want to grow again. Now we're asking more questions, deeper questions. And then again, we're going to live the answer. And we keep going through this cycle. This is the cycle of growth and evolvement. Okay. Question, answer, question, answer. And so if you're at this point where your relationships aren't serving you anymore, or your job is not in alignment, and it might not be the industry, it might just be the place of work. If these things are no longer there, stop trying to convince yourself that you can keep making it work, because you are now a new version of yourself. And this new version of yourself is not going to be satisfied, fulfilled by things of the past, right? If you have been on a self-development journey, then you've been doing it probably because you haven't been fully satisfied with the way things are, right? Like, my clients come to me at a point where they're realizing how they've been working and moving in life isn't sustainable. They need help and they don't know where to start. right? So they do all this work with me. And then, if they get to a point where they're realizing things are out of alignment, it's like, well, of course they are. Of course, you're going to have to say goodbye to some things because those things fit into your life when you were that version, who was breaking your back for everybody else, when you were people pleasing all the time, when you were working like a dog all hours of the day and not understanding your worth or your value. Like those things worked when you were that version. This new version, of you who understands what real freedom is, who understands what it is to feel joy and peace and love and still perform at a high level and expand what you're capable of and see big picture and really be able to enjoy the journey of life again. That version of you is going to need different people around you, is going to need different stimulants and different things that get you excited and motivated. Like, of course, that's the whole point of doing the journey, right? But sometimes we don't realize that the final boss of this growth, and we're going to have multiple journeys of growth, but for this chapter is going to be to finally let go of the things that no longer serve you, right? But if you're at that point, where it's so uncomfortable and you're like, why can't I break through? You're not failing. Okay. You're not failing. You're not doing anything wrong. You're right on time. This is what growth feels like. And the universe is going to say, what are you willing to say no to get to this next chapter of your life? You're there. The boulder's up the mountain. You're about to push it over the edge. But that last little piece, that's the hardest piece to get that boulder over the edge. That if you stick to it, if you commit to it and just say, this is what I'm willing to let go of, this is what I'm willing to let go of to create space to welcome in what I truly want, what truly makes my heart flutter, what makes me happy, what makes me smile, what makes me connect with all my loved ones. Like I'm ready to let that in. This is what I'm ready to let go of to do so. And when you can do that, that's when you start to live the answer. That's when you get out of the question period and you finally get into the answer period. Okay. But is that going to be scary? Yeah. Right. Like you're shedding an old skin to live in a new one. There's a grieving process. There's you're kind of like Bambi on ice, going to have to learn how to walk again, right? Making new decisions for yourself, making different choices, changing your schedule and how that's aligned up, changing who you're spending time with and the energy you're putting into that. Like, yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable at first because this is, a new way of living for you. But it's only uncomfortable till it's not, right? And the more you do that, the more comfortable it will feel, the more aligned you'll feel. And soon you're going to realize that all that work paid off. Okay. But this is just for anyone who's in that transition period. For anyone who's been working your tail off and you're like, just when am I going to have the breakthrough? Sometimes it's not about what more do I need to do. Sometimes it's about what do I finally need to let go of. And so if you're stuck, I want you to ask yourself that. Look in the mirror, grab your journal, however you want to do it, and say, what do I finally need to let go of so that I can raise to the next level of my life and be able to live in the energy and the freedom and the love and the peace and the joy that I truly want out of my life.